Part 4. Confucius's Wilderness Survival and His Troublemaking Life. So, about 20 years after Laozi, another formidable figure burst onto the scene, Confucius, also known as Confucius. Born in Khufu, in the state of Lu, he didn't get to enjoy his father's company for long before the old man passed. Then, at the ripe old age of 16, his mother left him too. This kid basically turned what for others was playing house into a game of wilderness survival. While other kids were playing with mud and slingshots, his preferred game was playing ritual. He was a real order freak from an early age. His life was tough, and he was often bullied, but his spirit was tougher than Mount Tai. At 17, he marched into a funeral banquet for a wealthy family, only to be stopped at the door by a guard. "Hold on, little guy. No invitation, no entry," he was told. Confucius never could have imagined that after becoming the teacher for 10,000 generations, his legacy would be cleared out twice in his homeland over 2,000 years later. The first time was the May 4th movement, and the second was during the Cultural Revolution. The radicals back then shouted, "Down with the Confucian shop!" They saw him as a stumbling block to history that needed to be kicked aside. But history, it turns out, has a mind of its own. The harder you try to erase something, the more stubbornly it sticks around. In the end, Confucius wasn't erased. Instead, he became a kind of spiritual totem. Official records describe the adult Confucius as a 9'6" giant. What does that even mean? If the numbers are to be believed, he was a human-sized Great Wall. Zhuangzi, the mighty general, was just over 8 feet tall. The fearsome Guan Yu, a mere 9 feet, and Zhang, who scared off an entire army with one yell, was only 8 feet tall. Compared to Confucius, they were all shorties. So we'll just comfort ourselves by saying that maybe the ancient scribes were having a little fun when they wrote that down. Young Confucius was passionate and ambitious. Hearing that Laozi was a great man, he immediately went to Luoyang to meet him. Laozi, then in his 40s, was a bona fide philosophical master and a truly enlightened one. When Confucius asked about rights, Laozi gave him a life lesson instead. He said, "Life is like riding a horse. When the time is right, you can gallop freely, but when it's not, you have to be patient and take it slow. Be like a divine dragon, deeply hidden yet full of virtue, outwardly simple yet truly wise." Confucius took this advice to heart, but he also saw the chaos in the Zhou dynasty. He hated the way junior officials were seizing power, and he felt society needed order, the very same he'd practiced as a child. He called this ideal order Keiji Fu Li, or to restrain oneself and return to ritual. The restraint part seems to be from Laozi's spiritual bomb, and the return to ritual part came straight from his childhood game memories. This just goes to show how much a person's future is shaped by their childhood and their teachers. Confucius didn't cause all this trouble for the sake of order or rights. His ultimate goal was a single word, jin, or benevolence. He defined it as the benevolent person loves others, which was basically the source code for his entire philosophy. To build this ideal society, he traveled everywhere, pitching his political ideas. He even boasted, "If someone would just use me, you'd see results in 3 to 5 years." He did eventually get a job as a chief justice in Lu, which is like being the minister of justice today. But his tenure was short. The state of Qi, fearing that a stronger Lu would threaten them, hatched a honey trap. They sent 80 beautiful women and 30 horse-drawn chariots full of dancing girls to Lu. The king and his ministers were so enchanted, they stopped showing up to court. Confucius knew this was a not-so-subtle hint to leave. He held out for one last hope. If the king followed ritual at the suburban sacrifice, he might stay. Part of that ritual was giving cooked meat to the ministers, but to Confucius's dismay, the king gave them nothing. Confucius knew he took the hint and left his home state and started his travels, which lasted over a decade. In retrospect, this was probably a blessing for Chinese civilization. It forced Confucius to focus on writing and organizing ancient texts instead of getting bogged down in political drama.